here we are. It's episode 3 of the Phil Connor Society, and today's guest is Sandy Liskey. Hi, Sandy.
Hey, Mike.
There she is. For those who don't know, the reason I came up with this is I started playing that weird thing in the background when I was 45. I remember being 25 and thinking, oh, geez, I wish I'd learned guitar, or when I was 35, oh, it's too bad. And then when I was 45, I realized I'm still alive and I have, I could actually learn. And I thought, if I live to 50, I'll be someone who can play guitar at 50. So Phil Connors is the character that Bill Murray plays in Groundhog Day, and he goes through a series of living the same day over and over again, and it drives him bananas, and he tries to escape, and he eventually comes to a place of acceptance, and in that place of acceptance realizes, hey, all I've got is this day that I keep living over and over again. Why don't I do something with it? So he learns to play jazz piano, he learns to ice sculpt, he learns languages, he changes his whole attitude towards everything, and it's a great metaphor, I think, for our real lives. I think that's kind of what we're going through. So that gives a brief lowdown on what the show is. And the show is interviewing people who, luckily, I have found people that are actually trying new things, because without that, we wouldn't have a show. So here's our third guest, Sandy Liskey. Liskey as in risky business. That's her new nickname.
Yeah.
And I'm going to tell you guys out there, I've known Sandy for years, but I'm going to give you a little bio of who she is, and then we'll start the interview. So Sandy Liskey is a painter, gardener, and former retail manager and trainer in specialty coffee. She started her movement series as recommended by her rock star therapist, Maya. Shout out to Maya at Inner Sun Psychology, as a way to help reconnect and ground herself, and has for the last 3 months, just 3 months, been meeting in the park where her friend and shiatsu therapist, Robin Grant, takes a small group through Qigong moves. Sandy does not attach any religious beliefs to her practice, instead connects with nature and others by taking time to breathe in nature and share this connection with others. Sandy has been sharing her daily Qigong practice with others through her YouTube channel. I recommend it. I've been watching it myself. And all movements can be done either seated or standing. So that's a little bit about Sandy Liskey. So again, welcome, Sandy.
Hey, Mike. How you doing?
I'm good. Phil Connor Society, new member here. So yeah, we've already mentioned what it is you've taken on. So let's go to my second question that I asked. Why, in this particular case, Qigong?
I wanted something that wasn't overly complex. I find a lot of things very complex when it comes to movement or dance. And I wanted something that was just a little more fluid. So you can do anything. When I'm doing Qigong with other people, I say, if you can't make this move, just do something else. Raise your arms, move your feet. Maybe you can't make that move right now. Maybe you'll be able to make it in 2 months. So it's all new, and it's all learning. So
so you're saying, I hear you saying that it's accessible to people. It's not something that is going to scare people off. Kind of anyone can try it.
Absolutely. I started chair yoga because we've known each other forever, but years ago I got hit by a car and broke both my wrists. I then developed problems with my knees. So when I went to the Y about 4 years ago, they had yoga programs, and I really wanted to get into the yoga programs, but I couldn't lean on my hands and I couldn't kneel on my knees. So I ended up doing chair yoga with a lot of seniors, a lot of people from different abilities. And I realized that these movements could help not only me, but my partner Lisa upstairs, who spends all of her time crouched over a desk, like you and your partner Lisa.
My Lisa, we both have Lisas.
We have Lisas.
Yeah.
So the Lisas are a little tight. So I started the Qigong, and then Lisa actually started joining us on Tuesdays in the park. So it's fantastic.
Cool. Now, how did you, there's probably a lot of people out there who've never heard of Qigong. When and how did you hear about this practice? And what exactly is Qigong as opposed to yoga?
Well, I don't actually know as much about Qigong as I'd like to, but here's what I do know. A few years ago, I was working as a receptionist in a massage studio, and I met my friend Robin Grant, who is a shiatsu therapist and also teaches Qigong. And we started talking about it, and he was saying it was just a flow movement. Qi is all about the energy force within you, and this is just a flow movement to get yourself going. And what you feel when you do this kind of slow motion is just relaxed. There's no pressure. It's not like playing a sport. It's not like, you know, doing anything competitive. It's just you feel really relaxed, and because the movement is slow, it actually puts a great deal of work on your muscles.
Right.
So it does help to relax you.
But
So my
it's
friend
also,
Robin introduced it to me.
And how long ago was that Robin introduced it to you?
Well, he's been doing it for like 40 years.
Right.
He told me about it 3 years ago. I started doing Qigong with him in the park in July, and then started regularly, which is a daily practice for me,
Right.
of doing Qigong.
Okay, so he mentioned it to you 3 years ago, and then you took it up 3 months ago, which leads me into my next question. Why now? Is it, I'm imagining the P word, the pandemic might be, is that anything to do with it, or just?
Part of it is, yes, the pandemic. I mean, I have a lot of spare time. I haven't been able to house paint because people don't want me in their homes. And I have to say, I don't feel comfortable going into many people's homes during this time.
Sure.
I'm a very social person, and I miss being out with people. And so this was an opportunity for me to get together with people, have some movement outside in a beautiful park, enjoy a coffee afterwards, and you know, what a great way to have a day, you know, to start a day. So
cool. So it allows you to have a social experience because it's outside, and then you're getting all these other benefits from it. So have you been interested, like you said, you like doing things that are like movement wise aren't super crazy challenge. I know you cycle a lot. You've cycled for years. Have you always felt like you're someone who needs to connect with the body? Is that
not necessarily, more connection with nature, and that was my big pull to Qigong, because you could do it outside. It didn't take up a lot of space if you wanted to do it inside either. But it's a connection with nature. I've had friends who've done Tai Chi and Qigong for many, many years. As far as I know, Qigong is really the first 18 moves of Tai Chi. So it's the parent of Tai Chi. And it's, when I did Tai Chi, I did it a couple of times. I found it very difficult to keep up because there were so many moves and people were so graceful and I was not. So now with Qigong, I have less moves to focus on and I'm slightly more graceful, but not a great deal.
So it's sandy friendly is what it is.
It's sandy friendly. It's good for your knees. Recently, I've been actually talking to a friend of mine. We met through a coloring group I started a couple of years ago. We would all get together and just color for a couple hours in the evening, and it was fantastic. And she has problems with her knees, and so she has started following my Qigong. She has a compromised immune system, so she doesn't go out to the groups, but she can follow along on the YouTube channel that I just started. So she's really happy. I have another friend, Lisa, who lost her leg this summer in a motorcycle accident. And so she is differently abled, and she is looking at ways to reduce stress and to continue movement. So this is also a great thing for her. So I'm hoping, I'm hoping more people will just go, why not try it? It's
well, it's funny that you bring that up, because when we try something new, often there's a ripple effect, right? And that's what's happening with you, is you started it yourself and now you're helping others heal, and other people are, and that's one of the great things about starting something new, is we're not in a vacuum. And so we start, like I've inspired a couple of people to think about trying guitar, one who actually did, because that's my thing that I started. But let's talk about beginner's mind. That's something that one of the gifts, the many gifts of playing guitar for me is being a beginner. because I'm a professional actor, and I often feel like, oh, I know how to act, and there's something deadening in that. You know, you think you know it all, and then it's like, well, you know, and there can be ego involved. Whereas when you realize you suck at something, which I did for a long time, my wife called me spider hands. You know, I was embarrassing for quite a while there. It was wonderful though, because I could go, you know what, I've never done this before, so whatever, I'm new.
I don't
And
have to be good.
no, and with that comes the humility that we're talking about, but also the pure joy of going, oh my God, I can do a B bar chord now. I can do a chord change without taking 5 minutes to move. You know, you see the progress, you experience it, and it's a real gift. I often say that if I could have learned guitar in a week, that's awesome, but would that have been as rewarding, right? So how has your experience of beginning this, have you felt that with Qigong at all?
Absolutely. One of the big things that, you know, happens with beginning anything new is you're very vulnerable. And I've talked about vulnerability with a lot of different people, and there's this whole thing of putting yourself out there to make mistakes. And, you know, everyone says, you know, you can't make mistakes. And mistakes feel bad, but actually sometimes mistakes feel pretty good. So when I do my Qigong, I say, you know, I might fall over, I might wobble, I might start laughing, and that's okay. You can fall over, nobody's seeing you. So it's totally fine. Today I was talking to my younger sister in Manitoba. She's a nurse, and she was saying, you're doing this thing. I would never put myself out there. And I said, well, you know, it's really difficult to do it because I'm a larger person and I'm not necessarily graceful. So this is something really out there, and it feels remarkably good because not only am I, you know, breathing in great nature air, I'm moving my body, which is a precursor for going for a walk or a bike ride or something else. It's something you can always do. And so it's always new for me. You know, every day is Groundhog Day until I get, you know, the 18 moves in order, because I still don't do it in order. Like the first 4 moves, I can do in order. And then I kind of forget, and then I add a move, and then I throw in some yoga. So I don't even call it Qigong. I just call it movement.
Yeah, no, it's exciting what you're talking about here, because to start something new that, you know, you're saying you're a larger person, you feel that you're not super graceful. Like, it takes courage for anybody, even if you were a graceful person and felt that you weren't large, or, you know, whatever the thing you feel might get in the way of it. Regardless, people are afraid. It's part of our, you know, human nature is to fear being laughed at, to fear failing, to fear making mistakes, like you said. And when we do that, we realize there's nothing to fear, and that in fact there's a freedom in that we're human, that it's okay. If anything, people are gonna support you and go, hey, good for you, you're trying this, right? You know, we have all these fears, and it's so funny. Like, I met a guy years ago when a couple of years after I started playing guitar, and so I was in my late 40s, he was in his late 50s. We were at this social thing, and I was meeting him, and I told him I started guitar, and he said, oh geez, you know, I wish I'd always learned to play piano. And I was like, you're not dead. You're still sitting across from me, right? And I said, you can do it. Now, I don't think he took me seriously, and maybe he did, I'm not sure, but within that comes these fears, right? Or a number of people have said to me, oh, I'm not musical, right? I'm not musical. And it's like, well, it's all on a spectrum, right? Some people, like, you know, Jimi Hendrix are gifted, and other people like me are spider hands. And it's like, but like you said, you can try anything, you know, and it's so simple, but it's so difficult, right? In a way.
I often feel uncomfortable because I'll do it in the backyard and other people can see me. And it's, you know, I'm by myself, I'm doing these movements, and there's a little self-consciousness when I hear the kids going to school, because I know that they can see me. And it's just like, what is that woman doing? and you know, it's okay. I mean, they're
Yeah.
not that interested. So, you know,
Yeah.
but it's my own judgment that holds me back, you know?
Yes. Sure. Yeah. We're
So,
assuming we're thinking that others are going to ridicule us, or like I saw a guy in the summer rollerblading on my street, and he was probably about 40, and he was, doing the wide-legged,
yep,
struggling, and a part of me, that I hate to admit was like, oh, maybe I should tell him, because I used to skate and play hockey. And then I slapped myself metaphorically and went, wait a minute, this guy's trying to learn this. That's
that's it.
awesome. Right? So I'm admitting that I'm a bad person. I judge. No, but no, but in that moment we have that reaction, right? Like, what's he doing? He's, flailing out there. And then I realized the reality that, oh my God, that's so amazing. This guy is, and you know what? A year from now, he's going to be cruising next summer down the street and he'll have learned it.
That's
Right?
it.
Nobody starts a master at something. So
No. And you might not even finish a master at something. You might
yeah,
just be mediocre. And
absolutely.
mediocre's okay. You
Yeah.
know, we can't
Yeah.
all be great at everything. I
No.
I was quite a perfectionist when I was in specialty coffee.
Hmm.
I worried about my store. I put a lot of hours in, and
Yeah.
really, you know, could I have lessened my hours and had a happier life? Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. You know, but I was driven to do that. And this is something that kind of still makes me giggle.
Yeah.
It's fun. I get to teach other people how to do it,
Right.
and nobody has to do it perfectly.
No, and that's a thing. Like my first guest I had on in the first episode, she played guitar at the end. That's the thing she's learning. And I immediately went, wow, good for you. You're only been playing for 2 months. Immediately becomes the look how good you are after. And I caught myself and said, you know what? The exciting thing is that you're learning this. And, we're always learning, right?
Hmm.
Like, and that's the important thing. It truly is. Like, you know, playing guitar has been fun because I don't intend to become Stevie Ray Vaughan. I have no illusions about being a great and so it's just for the joy of it. And it's
Hmm.
so nourishing compared to these ego-based goals that we might have with things, right?
Hmm.
Like you had, and it's good because you were probably amazing at your specialty coffee, which is wonderful to be great at
Yeah.
something, but there's a lot of pressure that can come along with that too, right?
Well, that's a work thing. So it makes work less enjoyable when you're that level of perfectionist. I mean, my job was to go into stores and either clean up after franchisees and retrain
Hmm.
staff or open brand new stores.
Right.
Very high pressure environment. And I think the only thing that got me through that was cycling, because I consistently cycled between 10 and 20 kilometers a day. Well,
Right.
Toronto,
Oh yeah.
nobody owns a car.
Right.
So that was what got me through it. That was my Zen time.
Mm.
And now I find Qigong is my Zen time.
Yeah.
And there's no pressure out there. I can do it at any point in time.
Yeah.
And it just, breathing in general, just taking a couple of big deep breaths is going to
Hmm.
help everyone. So
Sure.
this is a combination of breathing and movement. So
Yeah.
it's a win.
Yeah. There's so many things I want to ask you. Yeah, that's the thing, like the newness of it. And compared to, like you said, a work situation where you're being pushed. Qigong, like you said, you have your own understanding of it, but there's probably so much to learn there, right? Like,
Hmm.
it's this ancient martial art, and that's a wonderful thing too, is that sometimes we're the tip of the iceberg, right? There's so much to learn. Even like you said, like you've got the 4 moves down, and
Hmm.
there's 14 other ones, right? And that's awesome, you
Yeah.
know. And so you mentioned nature being an important thing. Have you always, since you were a kid, have you always needed to connect with nature? Is that something in your...
Well, I think I came from a generation where you just didn't stay in the house. You weren't
Right,
really allowed to be in the house.
right.
And I grew up in a town of 200 people, so we were outside a lot of the time. I did a lot of gardening when I was young. I
Mm,
come from a very large family. There's 10 of us.
Wow.
And the last 5 kids are female, so we all helped with gardening and, you know, splitting wood and mowing grass, and we were all very physical. You know, we
Right.
were out biking. We walked everywhere. I still walk everywhere. And
Mm-hmm.
the one thing I found when we moved to Kitchener is I found this beautiful stand of poplar trees. And I have a special connection with poplar trees. I think they are one of the most magnificent trees ever because they smell so great. And when they when the wind moves their leaves, they shimmer. They have these beautiful leaves that almost are 2 different colors. And I found it close to my house. And so I started walking by there, and I would just stop and listen to the trees for a second. And so that was my reconnection with nature.
Right. That's interesting because how long did you live in Toronto for? Do you know how many years?
I moved in 86. I met Lisa in 88. We moved out briefly for about 3 years, came back, and then moved here about 5 years ago. So it was about 25 years, but there's great spots in Toronto to hit nature. I mean, I used to walk the ravines a lot. I used to cycle the ravines and go to High Park and the beaches.
Yeah. High Park's my Zen place.
Yeah, it's just fantastic. But down by Davenport and DuPont, there's some trails by the TTC yards that are fantastic. So
right, yeah, you're right. You know, that's where I was going with it. Was Kitchener is full of nature, but if you look, Toronto's got oodles of parks and the lake, and you know,
it's fantastic.
Yeah. Now you mentioned the rock star therapist Maya. Do you want to talk about her and how she's helped you in your journey, so to speak, and why she's a rock star?
Well, you know, she's no Patti Smith, as I like to tell her.
Right. Who is? Yeah.
But you know who is.
Yeah.
So Maya and I've been in off-on therapy for about 1.5 years. I went because I was feeling a little empty, and I didn't feel like we fit into Kitchener. You know, it's a different place. We're, you know, very metropolitan. Maya actually was the person who suggested a couple of things to me, and these things are my practice. So I would begin my day. I would start with a 10-minute meditation, maybe 5 to 20 minutes of writing, and then I would do Qigong as a way to move, because sometimes you get a little stressed when you write. And so the Qigong was a way to move and get myself going and work off some of that energy.
Cool.
So she has been epic in helping me. She has suggested a great deal of items, but made me choose what my path is and what would work for me.
Right.
I haven't seen her for a couple of months, but right now I am going to do a plug for Brené Brown.
Oh yeah.
Love this woman. She's fantastic. Jane Clapp is another woman out of Toronto. I'm doing a queer book club, and we're doing this book, which is a book about shame. And starting something new has a lot to do with touching your shame, because you're not good at it. You're not the expert. People are looking at you. You think they're judging even when they're not.
Right.
So these are some of the things that Maya helped me with. I was depressed. I feel much better now, and I feel like I can always go back to her should I need to you know, have someone help me work things through.
Wonderful. Now, I have two. That leads me into two different things. It's funny when we start something new, we start realizing all the other things we've started. Like you started therapy, right?
Yeah.
That's no different in a way. It's like you needed it, you went there. It takes courage, and so there's something else. But another thing which is interesting is, do you feel that this Qigong practice and all that it's giving you is going to help you in those situations, like when you're doing specialty coffee and that perfectionism might kick in, do you think it's going to help in those areas where those other perfectionistic kind of things might get in the way?
Well, right now I'm a house painter, so all of my lines have to be very, very accurate.
It looks awesome, by the
And
way.
it's kind of a fun thing to do because while it's not very social, it has that level of challenge
Mm-hmm.
that I really enjoy. And
Mm.
so I find myself after doing my cut lines, getting off my ladder and just
Mm-hmm.
stopping for a second. So I
Yeah.
can incorporate Qigong into moving my shoulders so that I'm not as cramped, or
Right,
just
right.
breathing so that, like sometimes, I've had to, the worst was I had to paint this guy's place, and I was 8 feet up on a ladder with
Right.
floor to ceiling windows,
Yeah.
overlooking on the 14th story of a building, overlooking a construction site that went down. And I was like, I am going to die.
Yeah, I couldn't. Oh, thanks. Yeah.
And and I was just like, okay, we'll just breathe through it.
Yeah.
You'll be okay. You won't die. You're not going to go through the window.
Yeah.
It's just, but
Yeah.
these are the things you're thinking.
Right. Yeah, because
So,
I think that, I did a play last year and I can't articulate it exactly, but I know that my guitar practice helped me in the process of rehearsing and
mhm.
of working with other actors and stuff. That I'd catch the ego coming in. I'd catch I have very perfectionistic with acting, got to get everything right, blah, 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 which is good in some ways.
Mhm.
You want to get the lines right. But I noticed it bleeding in there in a good way. And I think that again, that beginner's mind can apply to even things that we've done for years. It can alter our attitude and approach it in a different way, maybe, than we have.
Well, I think it makes us a little bit more gentle on ourselves too,
Mm,
because we're our own worst critics, right? So
right.
if you're a beginner, there's not a lot to criticize,
Yeah.
like you got to let go of that.
Yeah.
And
Yeah. You wouldn't berate a child for trying to ride a bike for the first time, right?
that's
Now,
right.
we've only got a couple of minutes here, Sandy, and it's your call, but would you want to give us a brief demonstration? Show us a little bit of what you're doing, what you're practicing, maybe?
Sure. I'll give you the first 4 moves.
Okay. Perfect.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Okay. So you start with a couple of big, deep cleansing breaths.
Okay.
And everything is slow.
Yeah.
And that's it.
That was wonderful.
So just imagine being at your desk all day and your shoulders get tight.
Right.
That took 30 seconds.
Well, I have an acting teacher, and he said, you want to change the molecules in the room. And that's what you just did. Seriously. So I'm going to
Excellent.
read, before we cut out here, I want to read a little quote that I think applies to the Phil Connors Society. So it's by Helen Keller. And she says, life is either a daring adventure or nothing at all. So thanks, Sandy.
Well, thank you, Mike.
And take care. Keep Qigonging.
You bet. And you keep on with that guitar. We're not Eddie Van Halen, but I've got mine in the back that I play on too.
We will jam sometime.
For sure.
All right.
Be
Take
well, my
care.
friend.
Thanks for watching, everybody.
Thank
Bye.
you.